for this conference and saw, you and I have spoken in the past about the work you've done with Starfinder, which is on that poster behind you. And maybe that's a good place to start, because I want to hear all about the role that you're in now, because that's what's going to be relevant for the folks watching this now and later. But share with us where you started with Amazon from a content point of view on the gaming side, and how that's brought you to where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The first project that I worked on in the game space was actually working with Audible on the Choose Your Own Adventure skill, and it was the first. They have an agreement with ChooseCo. It was the first 5 stories of the series that I remember growing up, and it was creating this interactive experience based on the not based, it was faithful to the books. And that was sort of this first, aha moment, as has been sort of mentioned throughout, that there's something here. There's something about this companion, it's a book, but then it's enriched by sort of sound effects and a fabulous narrator. And then we sort of moved from that into Starfinder, which is an audio drama meets a choose your own adventure-ish type of mechanics. It's a little more game focused, but the point is that it's based on a pen and paper adventure, and and the writing staff that we had came from they're authors. We didn't have game writers. We had authors sort of writing out the script. And so from that place, it was thinking about, what does this continue to look like? And sort of focusing on the book aspect and how can I look at this from a, one, what lessons can I extract from Choose Your Own Adventure and Starfinder and sort of apply them towards a book-centric or an entertainment-centric use case. And then 2, thinking about, gosh, there is just all this content. And all these readers, there's something here at this intersection of, sort of book content, as you alluded to earlier with some of the, emerging companies, book content, this voice interface, and then this, additional audio flavor.
So, yeah, there's no question about that. And so for folks who don't know, and I guess it was unrealistic for you to explain this the way I would, Starfinder is the biggest and most successful, in my opinion, game for the Alexa ecosystem that has been created. There's no question it's the highest production game that's been created, but it's been successful in many, many ways. And Chris was a ringleader for that effort. And, it's been interesting to see how that has springboarded a lot of stuff and just changed the ways, many folks have looked at Alexa as an entertainment platform. I'm curious. So, I stumbled across, your LinkedIn and saw, okay, you're not doing that anymore. You're working on book discovery and purchasing in Alexa. How did you go from one to the other? What conversation in Amazon happened to where somebody saw your skill set and thought that you should be doing that? And what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, it came out of a conversation with some folks sort of who are in the Alexa shopping books organization, and as they've been thinking about book discovery, and they had come across the experience and said, "Boy, this is really enjoyable." And thinking about this idea of Audible has been doing book trailers for quite a while, and they're really fantastic. And it's it's 60 seconds of a similar, for some of the titles, obviously not all of them. But it's multiple narrators, it's sound effects, it's like hearing a video trailer. And so they were interested in sort of, hey, can you take what you've learned about, the term is overused, but gamification, rich audio production, and come over to the books domain, and let's look at how we can make book discovery more enjoyable. How can we, how can we reimagine book discovery? How can we reimagine, engagement with books through this specific modality, the voice modality?
It's kind of amazing how terrible book discovery is today. You think about it. And I had never really thought about it until we went out and acquired Digital Book World. And then I started thinking about it quite a bit because it would come up over and over again. And there's companies, of course, that's their entire reason to exist, is helping with book discovery in different ways. But really, there's only another human being tells you about it. Okay. So that's word of mouth, or
Right.
they tell you about it through social media. Again, it's a variation of word of mouth, or increasing, or Google, a Google search turns up something, and my Hey Google is about to activate. I'll stop. That's a rite of passage. Or Amazon recommending products to you, and interacting with you that way. To me, those are the main ways. I mean, how do you view book discovery now? And also, while you're at it, because I could never answer the question, what is the state of book discovery in Alexa right now?
Yep. So in terms of the sort of the first question, what's interesting with book discovery, it's an order of magnitude larger, but it's similar to a challenge that we faced in voice, which is there are a number of skills, great content. It's a fit with certain people's, if a certain audience could discover it, they would love it. Just getting them to discover it, however, is challenging. And it feels like a similar challenge within books, where there are there's a not giant, but a very large supply of content, existing content, fantastic content. And then there's this huge population of readers. And the trick is just figuring out, how do you sort of do that? Today, so you could walk up to in a device, you could say the wake word, and you could say, what should I read next? And that will take you through an experience that we've created. We created last year, where based on some of your reading preferences, based on book titles that are popular, based on the format, because we have to start to consider format. What's a reader's preference? Do they read more on Kindle? Do they listen to audiobooks? Do they prefer a physical book? There's a lot of there's complexity, and especially within that that conversational interface, where if there's not a lot of value there, customer just goes to the phone, or goes to another discovery mechanism. But there are, in my opinion, there's this opportunity to make that a really magical, helpful moment of considering everything that you've read. Here's your next favorite book. We're not there yet today. We have but the what should I read next experience is our sort of initial foray into solving some of that discovery challenge.
How, Amazon has mass marketing it does, You know, there's been Super Bowl ads. There's been, you know, I think there's been a lot of different TV ads at this point. And then there's stuff that's on the back of the box of Echo devices. What other ways than those two ways do people find out? You know, I know that Alexa has started to sort of proactively say, hey, by the way, you can ask me this. You know, is that what you're looking to do to drive awareness of Alexa, what can I read next? Or is there some other marketing bullet in the chamber you're going to fire to let people know about that?
I mean, that is what I'm working on right now is, and again, it's, you know, it's a familiar problem. It's the same, you know, sort of problem or challenge with skills that you can, you know, you can have a PR, you know, you get press coverage at launch, you get, you know, you run some stuff on social, you know, you do some other things, but then, you know, then what? You know, how do you sort of sustain it? So you know, I don't have a solid answer at this point, other than the way that I am thinking about it. And I would say, you know, maybe a theme that I am thinking about is, how do we make, you know, instead of having siloed sort of, whether it's experiences, whether it's marketing messages, whether it's, you know, instead of having them occur in silos, how can they be, you know, mutually reinforcing, you know, omnidirectional? How can we have the, you know, a social placement that, you know, can flow into a voice, you know, a voice placement or voice action if it's useful to the customer, you know, or a mobile action, or a, you know, meeting the customer where they are in the modality that they're interested in consuming at that time.
There's it's good to hear that that's challenging, you know, because if that answer were too easy, you know, I'd it actually leads me into my next question for you. So, you know, there ought to be a word for the imaginary line that exists between, for most people, what is acceptable, and then for what most people would deem as creepy. Okay. And we've seen it a couple of times with voice and AI already, most notably is with Google Duplex. So Google rolls out Google Duplex. If you don't know what that is, basically Google did this demo where they're an AI is making an appointment on your behalf with a hair salon, and it's playing this conversation, and the person on the phone at the hair salon doing the appointment has absolutely no clue that they're not talking to a human being, and nor does anybody else till the end of the demo's over and you're told that that was an AI. And people were like, whoa, like that crossed the line. And people weren't ready for it. It didn't really cross the line. It's just people weren't ready. Like, and so it took them time to get ready. And we've seen this again and again. The other example that I'll point to is a famous one with Target, where Target, you know, they have all of this rich data of how people go into the store, and, you know, with the red card, they can track you, you know, like the Eye of Sauron with what you're buying. I know this because, you know, I love Target, but my wife really loves Target, but this is a separate subject. Target made news for a promotion they did, in which they realized, some data analyst in Minneapolis, or where I think they're based in Minneapolis, figured out that customers buying these same 4 items, one was like a moisturizer, one was a vitamin, and 2 were just random. They were totally random. If you buy these 4 things, then we as Target know within like a 95% confidence interval, you're pregnant. I'm not making this up. You can Google this.
Wow.
And so what they did is a lot happened with nobody knowing, to target executive management. Somebody made the decision to say, okay, well, if we know that, then why don't we send out a bunch of mailers advertising pregnancy products, since we know that they're pregnant.
Right.
And so you can know what happened next. What happened next was some guy goes out, this old man goes out to his mailbox. I'm not making this up, but it's a great story. Or it's an interesting story. It wasn't great for everyone involved. The old man goes out to the mailbox, sees this pregnancy propaganda from Target, and he starts making phone calls to Target's office saying, how dare you? But lo and behold, his daughter was pregnant. And even she didn't know it. All of that to say, that's a long-winded way of asking you, how are you going to protect data? What conversations do you have with you and your team on, we just heard from King County Library, people who are trusted with privacy and protecting people's information. How are y'all going to protect people's information? How do you cherish that and value that internally? Yeah,
I was going to bring it up, but for the products that I work on, I just take a very similar approach to King County Libraries, which is you find that those focus groups find that and I really appreciated, what she talked about, the deliberate way that she formed those focus groups. So not necessarily going out and grabbing the sort of, who's around me, let me get all my friends, it's who do we think is going to use this product? Well, let's make sure that we have focus groups that are, and it seems obvious, but, let's make sure that we have focus groups that are representative of those, customer segments. Let's make sure that we include, tech folks who are not tech early adopters, folks who may have a device, or they might not, but maybe they keep it unplugged most of the time. That was a big lesson that I, took out of Starfinder, because we had a beta community, a very vibrant beta community with Starfinder. And it was eye-opening in those user sessions to observe not only how they're interacting with a certain game mechanic, but also their level of comfort around the device. And there a significant variance in that, and it opened my eyes, because I've got 7 devices, a bunch of test devices, I'm sort of that, this is where I work. And out of that, I think has come this focus and sort of this remembering that, hey, there is this wide variance. And what we need to do is make sure that we have a group of customers that we're going to every single time, we're contemplating a feature. Hey, what's your reaction to this? And it's both qualitative and quantitative. It's survey driven, and it's, user studies, and it's quality studies. I have not found a better way to, sort of have a rheostat for where we are on respecting the customer's privacy, for understanding how well, what the customer honestly feels about this feature. And that's one of the things that I love about a good beta panel, is that they'll just tell you straight, straight to your face, this is terrible. I would never use this.
The other thing that comes up with Amazon all the time is this idea of Amazon as kingmaker. So, you're developing the ability right now for Alexa to tell you what to read next. And you're working on that. You're thinking about it on a daily basis. Resources will be behind it. And it's going to succeed. Because it's needed, and it's intuitive, and it's something that these devices should do. Like it's going to be successful. So, publishers, whether it's Hachette or, big publishers, mid-size, small, whatever, would listen to a conversation like this and they would say, I'm worried about being shut out. With Google, I've kind of figured out I can, I've got my search placement and I've kind of figured out the rules of engagement. And now everything that Alexa represents is going to take the discovery of my books off of Google, off of Facebook, even remove the word of mouth. And it's going to create this brand new channel owned by one entity. And I'm worried that I'll be on the outside looking in. What would you say to somebody with that concern?
I'm glad you're just teeing up the nice, easy questions, the just sort of slow pitch. And also I do want to call out, Geo Davis just asked a question in the chat that I really want to get to because it's a personal, I have thoughts.
Sure.
But so what I would say to that is that Amazon was built on books. And so while, yes, I can't speak, obviously can't speak for Amazon, but what I observe in my day-to-day execution is that there is strong representation within the company for all stakeholders of the book publishing process. And I think I would leave it there of, that's what I observe. And that's what I, interact with. We hear that because this is not something that will be created, in a vacuum on Alexa.
That's a great answer. That's why I asked the question, because I know I'm going to get good answers from you, and that's as good of an answer as you could possibly give. I'll read this question from Geo Davis here and let you respond to this, and then we can wrap up. I'm grateful for you being here. This is fantastic. Yes, creepiness is one of the guardrails, hopefully, but so are accuracy, relevance, and authenticity. Are we asking too much of AI or too little?
So, and this is where I can speak as a product manager, not necessarily as a this does not relate necessarily to projects that I'm working on currently. But when I think about Starfinder is state-based. Starfinder is delightful because, or at least is for the level that customers enjoy it, is because as we crafted the narrative, we understand where the customer has come from and where they're going, because we've sort of we've built that into the design. We're telling a story. The story has a narrative arc, and so we're sort of pulling the customer along by giving them little things that are tidbits that are very familiar to authors, plots, hooks, and exposition, building tension, resolution. Out of that experience, that's a 13-hour, 6-part audio drama. When last I checked, I believe there are 1,500. I believe there are 1,500 individual decisions that a customer can make throughout the sort of the course of the experience. All that to be said is that I am not convinced that many use cases need a one-size-fits-all. As someone building an experience, if I have the level of customer insight like has been sort of talked about today, I don't need a generalized language model. What I need is a local language model that's going to handle the permutations of what my customer is likely to say, the tasks that, I want it to succeed at the task that my customer is likely to perform within my experience. So, all that to be said towards that question, I guess I'm leaning towards that we might be asking too much of AI, that maybe it is very, very difficult. Maybe it's unsolvable. Of course, it's going to, it'll be solved later this year. But, to apply machine learning and artificial intelligence, which, they rely on training data sets. And if you, this is super nerdy, but, if you think about a distribution, well, AI is always going to be challenged to handle, distributions that are at the margins of the population, because there's just not enough training data for that model to handle an outlier. But I might I might be building an experience for the outliers. And so I think there is this, what's the weather? Totally. That makes sense. What is this sort of idea of, fairly common? But I think in this realm of the specific, whether it's a specific book, it's a specific experience, it's a specific, something where that is more understood, discrete, I suppose. I think that's the place where we should specialize. I don't necessarily need to spin up a complex AI, because I'll get more information out of just user studies and beta feedback.
Chris, you're at the forefront of something real interesting with everything, with what you did with Starfinder, being part of this game that many thought weren't, nobody would ever think something like that would be possible for the Alexa ecosystem. And now you're taking on something that is incredibly strategic for Amazon. And that's how Alexa enables book discovery and corresponding purchasing. This won't be the last time we have a conversation about this. Thank you for being part of DBW West.
Absolutely. And look forward to, Nashville in a couple of months.
Oh, it's going to be great. And we're excited to have you there. We'll be talking much more about that. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. Talk to you soon. And I'm going to put you back as attendee.